That's better.
Oh, is it loading?
It's on.
So we are live.
Indeed. So anyway, so we're live. We're talking. We're here talking about the new rules. We're well, actually not new rules, but changing rules. And by that, what we're doing is we're looking at how and where the use of fighters is going to happen.
Indeed.
Wow, that was touchy.
Just to give us a brief introduction, this is NASA Systems.
And this is Sil, of course.
We're doing our second live broadcast for IVPAC Global. And today, as most people know it, as April 23rd. So just kind of throwing that out there.
Not for much longer.
2015. 2015. Yeah.
2015.
For those of you who didn't know and didn't have a calendar.
That's right. So can
In
you see
case.
that? Yeah, Google Hangouts.
Yes, I can see that. Make sure that you share it with everybody.
Yes,
Well,
indeed. They
so,
are
yeah.
indeed sharing this with everybody. So
All right. Cool.
okay. So what we were looking at here, what we were talking about is we're in the midst of saying, like, if you're looking at all your combat roles here, stripped down as what they are in IVPAF, do fighters even have a home? I mean, do they have a role? Are they useful? I mean, obviously the interceptor is. That is your primary number one defender. I mean, and to a degree, attacker of offensive attack aircraft. But after that, close support, dogfighting, patrol, controls. Do you even need them?
Well, here's what I've come up with. I mean, the interceptor. I mean, we all know that we have to have one. There's no denying that. I mean, is it considered? I mean, is it considered a fighter?
Right.
Or can you lump it all into the attack role? Because what is he essentially, even though it's defensive on occasion, what is his primary objective? He's being aggressive. He's defending as well as attacking because he's trying to not get shot down. So he's trying to be the aggressor. When somebody's trying to come into his airspace, yes, he's on the defensive side, but he's not completely defensive. He's not just sitting there waiting and then just dodges a bullet. He's actually trying to maneuver and get into an attack position so he can be the aggressor and shoot down the other aircraft. So that was my thought before we went on the air, was that you could eliminate the fighter role itself, and then at that point you could have your long range attack, your long range interceptor, and then you could have your close range fighter, support, defender, whatever you want. And that would probably be it as far as I'd see.
That's
very so true. You could eventually narrow it down to 3 roles.
Why? Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, really stripping it down to the basic, yeah, because you would have, well, I don't know, because I always see it as like, if you're on the front lines, if you at the very front line of the battle, you only need a short range attacker. But if you're far enough away, you need a long range attacker, and you may just want to throw a medium range in there.
Exactly. I mean, you may have 3 range of attacks, and then you'll have your interceptor, and then that's basic. That's the basics, because you close, medium, and far, and then you need your interceptor to be able to attack what you throw at it, or what you're throwing at, and just be on target. Other than that, it's not necessary, but I mean, you could still have them. But I mean, when's the last time we actually used the dogfighter role? I mean, that was like more than 15 years ago.
Oh yeah, it was, and indeed, I mean, and it was still, it worked only because like I used it once as through IVPAC's history. We actually have a paper airplane war back in '86. Um, the ineption of the phases occurred in '86 due to the war, and as as it started, phase one was a dogfighter, and it actually was going up against another dogfighter. So you had two maneuverable aircraft in the air at one time against each other. So there was no real shooting down with another plane that would go straight on, which of course in itself was weird. It was different, but it did show that perhaps you could foreseeably do this. It's just also, as kids, you look at that kind of logic and you just think it's fun to fly around them and say who win and so on and so forth. Now you get the experience and you realize, look, we're in this to, if you're holding some kind of combat, you're trying to shoot the other one down, or you're trying to shoot at the person launching the planes to stop them.
Yeah, you're not going to use that plane.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah, right. Because it's not like it's got the bullets, or it's got the pilot, and it's shooting people down. You're just doing it with the interceptor. So
right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think. I mean, using those definitions, I cannot justify keeping different versions of the fighter in there. I mean, as much as I'd love to. However, however, I have thought of a way of maintaining them. If we made almost every other fighter role relegated to the reserves only.
But I mean, at that point, why? Why would you allocate them to reserves?
Well, I can see like
altogether. I mean,
it's a valid question, and the only thing I see about that is like, well, of course we like people to further designs and create new designs and so on and so forth. And I mean, the more roles we have, the more likely you're able to, it gives you something to shoot for. If I tell you we need to have one that does it.
But see, that could also be the trainer role too.
That's true.
That we have. Any other aircraft that you want, you can put it as a trainer role just to work with it, almost like an experimental role. And I think that's something that we could come out with that we all use, but we don't necessarily have it labeled as experimental. So changing the fighter role per se to an experimental role and just having one, it doesn't have to be one range or one flight plan or anything like that. It can just be the experimental role. So any new aircraft you're working on, go into that. That way it's specifically labeled, it's there. And then once you design that aircraft and get it to where you want it to be to fill in one of the active roles, you move that aircraft over in production to active duty and then slide in another one, which you could always have multiple that you're working on.
That's true. Yeah, because most people do.
We all do. Yeah, I mean, we all do. We're always designing multiple aircraft at the same time, new ones, and so forth. But as far as the actual role for the fighter, we've talked about this for a long time. But I mean,
today, which is the same as regular lazy, except I wear tape. There was a meme or thing I found that was on Facebook, so I shared it, put it on my wall, and I put a sparkly one.
But basically what it's going to come down to is, do we need the close support? What are we really attacking at that point? I mean, are we going to use it as a sacrificial plane and light it on fire and throw it short range and let it land on theirs?
This has happened before.
Which yeah. I mean, you could. Do you really want to sacrifice one of yours to potentially get more than one of theirs? I mean, yeah, you would at that point, but if it really come down to it, you could then just take them hostage.
Well, this was also when we talked about it too. We talked about a while back where should we have what we call attrition fighters in the force as well. This was something we dealt with a long time ago, about 30 years. When having planes that we build, they belong in our squadrons. Obviously, there are designs, but they're, I guess to be blatant, not as important. They're just planes that you can make up on the fly, take almost no technology really, but yet when you throw them, they're fighting for you, and you don't care if they're destroyed. As opposed to a plane that you would build your highest technology, it took you overnight to build it, and you obviously go into combat the next day and you're like, you know what? I don't think I want to lose that plane. So attrition aircraft have definitely, we've given heavy thought into whether or not those should actually be around.
And that could be the experimental role too.
Indeed.
If you have one that you've worked on for a little bit that does fly, but you don't necessarily want to put it on active duty, you could use that aircraft as a sacrificial airplane. Granted, you still may not want to, but you could at that point say, hey, you know what? I don't care if this plane is compromised, and just let it go. Just, use it as a decoy, use it as, a straight up sacrificial plane and throw it directly into their lineup, their flight line or wherever they're set up, and hopefully burn the rest of their planes to the ground.
Indeed.
I mean, you could, if you really wanted to at that point, do that. But I mean, I think as far as somebody new coming in, I feel like, because it felt overwhelming for me at first, that there were so many planes that I had to figure out and design to make it really to be able to join. And I didn't, it was overwhelming at first, because I think at the time there was either five roles maybe.
No, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
And that was back in 2000.
Yes.
I mean, that's not counting the trainers, the bombers, and the cargo planes.
Right.
That's not counting them. There was 5 other roles that we had at that time. And I mean, if we look at it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we have 8 technically.
Right.
Now,
yeah. This was just a response to actually developing these planes too. So.
And if you look at it, I mean, to have 8 different designs right off the bat for somebody brand new, that's going to be tough.
It is a challenge. However, we do not require that when you open up. That's just actually kind of showing where I'm at. Again, this roll sheet is inclined to mine just because of the amount and the type of aircraft that I have. But our entry rules have not changed. We still allow entry on just 3 transports, just 3 bombers, and the basic 5 roles, which this is kind of where we were discussing too, is like, do we want it to be a basic 5 or do we want it to be a basic 3? But it does not need to be expounded onto 8 by any means. I mean, really, if you come to the combats, you should probably just have 1 attacker and 1 fighter, as long as you can pull that, or the interceptor. As long as you pull that off, you should be fine to get in.
And that's why I think even if we have it expanded like this, I still think, like, overall, just keeping it at the basic and 3. I mean, 3 is great. I mean, we love to build them and love to make them do unbelievable things.
Oh yeah.
But my theory is why all of those roles aren't necessarily needed, because one plane can actually fill multiple roles.
This is true. This is very true.
Which is why we're having this discussion.
Yeah,
Because
and
your interceptor can fill most of the fighter roles.
This is true. It can, yes.
And then you just have your 1, 2, 3 attackers depending on their range. You have close, medium, and far, and then that's really it. So you technically and to start, I would think that you would only need your medium to far range, your interceptor, and then that would be, and then like one other one that could fill in one of the other roles, whether it's the close or the medium. If you can build one that goes really far, then you can either build a medium one or a short range one, and then your interceptor, and be substantial for the time being until you built that fourth design.
Right. That sounds perfectly viable.
Which is why I think that's close, medium, and long would work, and then you have your interceptor, and then the rest of it is just your trainers, your bombers, your cargo planes, and the extra planes that we have. Like if you want to throw in the experimental role, that's what I think it should be broken down to.
Right.
Because it's not, I mean, it's just a lot to make someone do right off the bat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, yeah. And I mean, I've seen, like I said, we've discussed, again, the entry, we've never made the entry to be that complex. I didn't want it to be. It was like all we did was expound upon, like, I mean, once you got in, it was totally up to you. Matt, OAE, is a prime example of that. He's put in like so many designs and got like, I think 5 for each role covered. So it's totally up to you as to how many you want to make for whatever it is you choose to do. And of course, we're going to leave that up to every member that comes in. If you want to expound upon it, like what you see as medium could be medium to long range, medium range, and then medium to short range. So you can have 5 covered. Totally up to you. I mean, dude, make planes. By all means, make planes. Make new designs. Go for it. We just want to keep it so that we're just trying to discuss it here as like coring it down, making sure that there's like, okay, we only need this fighter. Sure, we don't need other fighters. If you want to make other fighters, these are the ones that are available to make. Now, also, I guess what this comes into is like in our structure, our force structure, is this going to affect our wings and groups and stuff at bases? Well, yes, it is. And should we recognize these in active duty or in reserves? Because we're dealing with planes that, like, if we don't need them, should they have a home? Of course, I'm a staunch believer in fighters anyway. I like having the fighter wings. So it really kind of shakes me personally to get rid of them. Just because I like them.
I know that.
Yeah, I mean, so.
And I love them too because I mean they're fun. I mean they're fun to build.
Yeah,
they're definitely fun to use. But my favorite has always been the long range attack plane.
Oh yeah, and it has a tendency to be a lot of people's favorites too. Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course. Well, especially with your design. Now, I mean, I am working on a couple of myself, but and I'm trying to make them comparable, if not equal, or I'd like to say better, but I don't know if I can beat yours. I mean, yours has been around so long and does very well. I mean, the plane is what it is. I mean, if you haven't heard of the phase by now, I mean, you need to go back and watch a couple of our other videos. They're definitely out there on YouTube. Definitely go check out, Sil and his videos, IVPAC and their videos, so we can catch you up to speed on that. so with that said,
indeed, the phase is probably in itself. I mean,
it's probably held more records than all of mine together.
I'm not tooting my own horn, but I think it's fair to say that it has achieved legendary status.
It has. I mean, that build, that design for a plane, if you're able to replace it ever, and that's going to be tough to do. I don't know what kind of ceremony or whatnot, and we're getting off on a tangent here. I apologize. But we like to do that from time to time. But basically, what would that? I mean, no plane has achieved that kind of status.
No, yeah,
It just hasn't. No, I don't think anybody's ever built that many. I don't think anybody has ever made the distance that it makes, the height that it makes, the glide that it has, the design that it is. It's
so basic, but
it is very. Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's basic, but it's unique. It's the technology that you put on it from the time that it was created to what it is now. That basic plane that you built, 20 years ago or longer, it has not. It's not the same that it is now.
No, it's not.
And some of the ones that you built out of certain types of paper have been extremely better than others, just because their durability and their glide ratio and all of that stuff. They're amazing. So let's get back to the fighters here.
That's a whole nother show in itself right there. Yeah.
We might have a show just for the phases coming up probably in the next couple of days or so. We'll have to see. I think that might be our next show. We'll definitely post up more info. This was kind of an impromptu show that we decided to have.
Just because we were discussing this role issue.
Yeah, we were discussing this earlier, and we said, you know what, let's go ahead and get it out there for the viewers to see, because it's going to be interesting. But the close support, everybody pretty much knows what that is. It's your most of the time it's a snub nose plane that loops and is very unpredictable, and you can throw it at the ground and it pulls up, and everybody loves those because they're so fun to watch. They're very close range. You don't have to walk a million miles to go get them after you throw it once, because you can throw one of those probably 100 times before you can throw a phase 10 times, just because of the distance.
Yeah, definitely.
Back and forth just to go pick up the plane. I mean, I like that plane. I like the short range fighters. They're probably they're probably my second favorite plane to build, because they always look unique. They're definitely very, very easy to build for the most part. You have a wider wingspan, snub nose, usually a little bit of weight into the front, and that's about it. So I mean, that's the basics.
Yeah, they are basic, but yeah, like you said, it's got to be one of the more fun ones to watch.
Hey, yeah, it definitely is, because I mean they can go anywhere. But I mean, and I think that's one that we should probably keep. I still think the fighter role itself isn't. I mean, I understand that you want to have some separation between fighter and attack. Well, but then that goes back to the old days of having defense versus attack.
That's true.
What is technically a defense plane and what is technically attack plane? Because almost every single one that you have up here could be an attack plane.
Yes, and yeah, very true. I mean, we'll study any one of them becomes that in the use. So it's like we have a swing roll fighter that goes, like it's a fighter when it needs to be a fighter, and then like, no, I'm having it do attack now. I mean, yeah, you're right. Every plane, to a degree, can be built towards that end. So it's a matter of, I suppose, again, going back to our force structure, is like, do we change it to the point of, or even hell, do we change it at all? I mean, do we just say like, okay, but in combat situation, the 477 switches over from its cargo role to becoming, straight up bombers, so on and so. That's a bad example, just because the transports are going to stay transports. But the gist of it is such that you would you would the 66, a better example, the 66 fighter group at Haw River. I mean, they have fighters. The interceptor is there, but they also have dogfighters and they have the patrol fighters stationed there. I mean, in an attack sort of situation, if you are attacked near Haw River, I mean, or if you're running an attack from Haw River, the patrol, yeah, great switch right away to a medium attack plane right there.
Right.
So, but I mean, and again, it's like we're just placeholding here when we're talking about having a fighter group, a fighter wing versus an attack group, an attack wing. If we get to that point, I mean, because there's no reason all of them are able to swing into either role. So
Right.
it's like,
how do you determine whether it's going to be? So, because that's what really a fighter is a defensive role.
right?
So where do you draw the line as it being defensive and it being the aggressor?
As our definition is showing here on the sheet that's in front of everybody, I would like to say, okay, and I have a view on this. I mean, legitimate view. I'd like to say, will you change over is dogfighting? Your interceptor. I mean, again, going by the line. I mean, because we already discussed, like, obviously, that any of them could be both roles, but has straight up the roles that we've got listed. If you're going pure defense, interceptor, of course, pure defense. Patrol, that's pure defense too. I mean, that's just used to guard your territory. Dogfighter is where it switches because you can use the dogfighter in short to medium range circumstances where it's revolving around you. The plane flies around you as a semi-stunter. And like wherever you move, your front line, you are the front line, and wherever you move, it goes with you. It buzzes around you. So it's like it's a defender if you're still within your territory and you're being attacked. But if you're pushing the attack, it becomes the attacker. And then the control fighter has its sets. Well, I mean, excuse me, skipping over, I didn't mean to. The close support, as I've changed it to a fighting role, is also the same degree. Dogfighter is just a medium range version of this close support fighter. It's the same thing. Plane is kind of buzzing around you, controlling the air around you as a fighter. Dogfighter, medium range control, long range. That one definitely projects your force power and can be construed as an offensive weapon there.
Right. So we're still getting nowhere with this.
we're still kind of getting nowhere with it, yes. But I mean, it's a discussion of the ranges, and then again, like we're dual purposing. I mean, again, I'd like to think it's
down this way. Let's break it down this way. How many roles do we need to have? Is it the 5?
For straight up pure core combat roles? Combat protection, 4. The three attackers of short, medium, and long range, and your interceptor. That's what you need. That's the bare 4, the core 4, as it were.
Okay. So at what point do we strip everything else away and go with that, and then have your trainers, your bombers, and your cargo? At what point?
In truth, there's really nothing that can stop us from doing it, say, 24 hours from now. I mean, it's substantial. Really,
so
as members of the force, you won't see too much of a change, really. I mean, certain planes will end up having to be based differently. You will end up having a code. And for someone like, forgive me for saying so, Mark, but you're not going to have too much of a problem doing it since you have 10 planes to your name right now.
Yeah, because I mean, in the other circumstances that have come up with that terrorist attack and whatnot. So
Indeed.
I've unfortunately taken a substantial loss to my force. I mean, how many planes did I have at one point? A couple hundred.
I think
probably
so.
about 400 or 500.
Really? Wow, that was pretty substantial then.
Well, because I had what, like 300 Thunderbolts.
Oh yeah, from our yearly challenges. When you did
from our yearly challenge, I pushed and pushed and pushed, and that was the year of the Thunderbolt because I built that plane every day for a year straight. Now, granted,
and right now that sounds like a really good idea since interceptors are primary plane for attack and defense.
right, and
If
I
we
mean,
go with this role
I've
change.
probably got a handful of them over here right now. I built probably about 4 or 5 of them already within the last week. You know, I'm just taking it easy because I'm trying to decide since I had to completely since I lost a entire force of planes. I literally lost every single design and plane I had. Granted, most of them are in memory bank, which is where they should be.
Yeah.
But I know how to build. I mean, and that's the other reason why we like to do those challenges is because if you build a plane every day for a year, not only will you come up with new designs, but you'll get better at building, and you'll also get better at memorizing what you build.
And
I will
of
never
course,
forget how to build that. I will never forget how to build that plane.
Indeed, and most people need that. There are some people I've ran into quite a few of them that like build one and say like, "Hey, I forgot how to build this."
But because of that, I've learned to memorize a plane when I fold it and look at it and say, "Oh yeah, this is how I built that plane." Because of that, so I think
Right.
sometime in the near future we either need to have another yearly, or at least maybe not a yearly challenge, maybe even like a 6-month challenge, and just do it that way and see what we can come up with. But that's another video in itself too.
Indeed.
We can go into that discussion because we're running this one a little bit longer than we wanted to anyways, because we're trying to cut our videos shorter for the viewers just so they don't so we don't get too long-winded for them.
Right.
But I definitely, you know, I'm going to go ahead and throw my thoughts out there. I definitely think we should just cut it back to the core 4 and leave everything else optional, which I mean, it is optional. But,
It is, yes. I mean, this again,
But-
in front of you is just a way of. I mean, I will put it out there for anybody to share. Any member, any new member, any potential member, you share it, and you just know like this will be like I can highlight the ones that you definitely need for your core 4 combat, but then the ones that like these are the ideas if you want to expand upon your force, and you're welcome to them. You know, you can create new ones on your own. You know, just make it viable. That's all we ask. You know, and of course, make it fly.
yeah, it can't fly like a rock.
It
I mean,
can't fly like
well,
well.
I mean, if it's an interceptor, it's probably going to fly like a rock because it's going to go straight up and straight down.
And
That's about it. Or straight to the point of origin, or not to the point of origin, because that's going to be right where you threw it from. How that
That's
one
right.
basically to the point of, you know, where you look at something straight ahead and you throw it at that and it hits that. That's your interceptor. That's what you want. If you can throw it 100 yards and hit a stop sign, you can throw it 20 yards and hit a stop sign. Whatever. Why does it have to be a stop sign? I don't know. But if you can throw it at a tree 20 yards away or 100 yards away or 10 yards away.
Yeah, if
or
you
2
have
feet away.
if you have a personal vendetta against trees, this should definitely be the plane you take it out with.
You can throw it at your sibling, although I wouldn't recommend that because you might poke an eye out. That would be funny. You don't want to do that and have to explain that to your parents. Because I've been there.
You've been there.
Have been there. So you don't want to have to do that. Other than that, I mean, if you have a Sebring that you don't like, if there's a Chrysler Sebring sitting around that you don't like, just make sure that you can hit that car every time.
Or if you're really pissed off at a balloon that's like they make great. If you got a balloon stuck in a ceiling somewhere, ceiling rafters, you put a pin in the nose. They make great balloon retrievers. You know,
They do. You can just pop that balloon, get it out of your way. Especially it's maybe, you know, maybe a little cousin's birthday party that you're not so happy with. You know, take one over there, put a pin in it, and pop his birthday balloon. That would be
That's
hilarious. Right. Although you might get in a little trouble for that one too, but you know, you live and learn. So there's that. But basically, I think interceptor, and then you guarantee it, the longest range attack plane that you can build, where you throw it and it goes as far as you can get it, and it doesn't necessarily go. It has to glide. It's not necessarily going straight because of your arm strength. It's going to catch the wind. It's going to fly further than what you can throw it because of the wind carrying it. It may even turn and glide 20 yards to your right and land in a creek. We've all been there. We hate it because you're saying, "Oh, that's beautiful." Oh no! And there you go running after it. This is why the phase has so many planes, is because he's lost so many in the meantime. So, and my plane at the moment that is not comparable but has the same role is Spider. Although I don't have one built yet. I have not built one yet.
You have not built one yet.
I'm probably going to build one tonight.
Okay, sounds like an idea because you need one.
Because I need one. So, you know, but then, you know, I have my close support. I may change it over because right now I have Firecat as my trainer. I may change that over into my close support fighter because it works really, really well. I do have another design that I've also built that I'm working on.
Oh, okay, cool.
That I still don't know what I'm going to name it. I have the name in mind, but I don't know if I'm going to stick with it. And then I have my medium fighter, which is Vortex.
Okay, Vortex.
And then Diablo, and those two right there are competing against each other. Now, granted, Diablo may take the role of Spider if Spider can keep up, because Diablo's taken some strides and definitely pushed in the envelope for its range. Now, I definitely think that they may even flop roles, and I may have 4 roles there, and then my Interceptor as Thunderbolt.
Well, always remember that was one of the reasons why I created the dead role, or the deed role, as we like to call it. The defeating of enemy air defenses is essentially, like I said, it's the new one is like a secondary interdictor, and it works great, especially in my stead, because I use another type of phase for it. So
It's a long range. Yeah,
it does exactly the same thing. It's just slightly different because it acts as like a decoy. I mean, they're going to do it's a very similar flight profile, but it goes out there and launches the attack. And if the enemy sees it and starts launching its interceptors after that one, when the primary attack comes from the other type.
and that's something we haven't had before.
It is not. It is not.
And I mean, you don't want it to be the same plane. You want it to be 2 completely different planes.
To a degree. It works really well for me simply because if you see, and again, phases are very well known. You see a phase coming, you know what it's doing. You know what it's doing there. You know what it's going to be doing. So at least me, I have phase 3s running my interdictor, the strike penetration roll. But I have the 4s running the deed roll. And again, from a distance in flight, very similar looking bird. Can't really tell too much of a difference. You have to be on them. So if I launch my 4s, you go after the 4s, but the 4s are the deeds. The 3s are coming in, they're doing the attack. And you can't tell. See, whereas if you use 2 different planes, say if I were to use a javelin running the deed roll, you see it and you're like, oh, that can't be the attacker. It's a javelin. His phases are the attackers. Where are they? See the benefits there of having one that's very similar.
So that's why now that brings up a good valid point, because if I use Spider and Diablo,
exactly, you're looking at 2 different planes. You see, if you have your Spider doing attack or penetration,
I can show you the difference. Basically, this one got crushed. This is wonderful. All right, let's pull this up here. so everybody can see. This is not a spider, but this is the basic end result of what a spider would normally look like.
Which is what we call the Delta Diamond.
Which is what we call a Delta Diamond. This is the new design of my Diablo. You can completely see the difference. I mean, they are two completely different aircraft.
Right.
In design. And when you look at the side profile, you can see the difference here. You know, you're going to have a Delta Diamond anhedral versus a square rectangle anhedral. Just and the size of them, you know, there's a huge difference. I mean, you can, this one is basically a behemoth.
Right.
Compared to the other one. So, and this is about the size of a spider, roughly, maybe a little bit bigger, but it's definitely not this size because I built this one out of a different size sheet of paper, and I wanted it that way for a reason because I wanted to see how this one would do. So now, if I had my
speaking of
other,
is that a Spider V2 or is that a Spider V1?
This one is not an actual spider. This was going to be my new experimental interceptor.
Oh, okay.
So I'm testing this design versus the Thunderbolt to see if I like it. Now, if this was my spider and this is my other one, this is the new design of Vortex. They are very similar. So in the air, they look the same. From the back, they almost look the same. You can, I mean, if you're looking at them at an angle, all you're looking at is a Delta Diamond. So you're really looking at something different. But what I've also done with this one is I've taken it and I've cut in the back off. And this does fly. So now I can push the envelope with this one and Diablo, or this one and Spider. So I'm kind of working to see which one works the best, you know, which one will work to what I like, and see what we're going to do from there.
Okay. So, and we eagerly await the test flights of the new ones that you have there to see exactly where you stand with these new planes. I mean, we got to find out what they do.
Right. And the only other thing that's holding me up is the it's definitely the weather here.
Definitely the weather. Yeah.
Now, I mean, this is the new build that we built the other night.
Oh, yes. Our new Nexus there.
This is Nexus. You'll have to click your version over on the camera so they can see that.
Oh, yeah. Mine's, well, identical here we're talking, so it's not really. His looks like mine. Mine looks like his.
Yeah, they were folded a little bit differently as far as, you know, inside, outside folds. You know, flipping it over, folding it the exact same way, just on the reverse side of the paper. So his looks a little bit different on the top compared to mine. You know, I've got a fold here and a fold here, where all of his folds are on this side.
Yeah, I do have, mine triangle fold there, the body fold there goes in the inside, yes.
Yeah, see, and mine are
on the top.
Yeah, this is on the bottom for me. I like that a little bit better than I do this one.
However, mine does add the more drag possibility, so to each his own.
Yeah, because you have that underneath against the fuselage.
Right.
Which I don't have.
But they do. These are not anhedrals, by the way. These are just.
Yeah, these are not anhedrals. Well, you can't.
We didn't tape them against the body, but they are to be folded.
Yeah. So that's another neat design that we haven't tried yet. There's that. But those are our thoughts on the fighter roll.
Good.
if you guys have any thoughts on that, you can gladly post them on the link, post them on the video, post any comments you want, and just let us know what you guys think. If you have any questions about joining, just let us know. You can message us on the on YouTube. You can message us on Google Plus. Let's see. We do have a magazine out there. Go ahead and give them the link for the magazine. So.
Oh, the link. That's where we type up all of our good stuff, so to speak. That is at ivpaftoday.org. You want to check that out whenever you can. Yeah, we'd like it to be a little bit updated than it is right now, but it's fairly updated at the moment. We do have more news to put on there. That's actually kind of what I'm getting at.
Well, yeah, it's being updated all the time. It is actually IVPAF, IVPAF today. If you don't know how to spell today, that's I can't help you on that one. TODAY.
Hey,
I just did. So there you go. .org. ORG. So in case you couldn't figure it out, there it is.
There it is.
Write that down, folks. Write that down. So that way you have it. Let's see. That's about it, I guess, for this show.
That's about it.
We'll probably have one up in another day or two. And that'll probably be on who knows what at this point. We don't know what the agenda is. We don't know what our agenda is going to be for the next couple of days.
And our topics
it changes from day to day.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. So with that said, do you have any final words?
Just keep creating and get out there and fly as much as you can. That's really it.
All right. And with that, we appreciate all our viewers out there. Go ahead and hit us up with any questions you have. And we'll catch you on the next show.